Now, I don't know if any of my boys were really motivated by schoolwork itself, but I do know that all of them are motivated learners. Let me explain. Okay. Last year, my youngest would have been in 3rd grade. I had one going in 11th. I wanted to make sure he was getting all his credits taken care of because he was wanting to take dual credits his senior year. I also had an 8th grader. I wanted to make sure he was ready for high school. So my 3rd grader, he was doing pretty well with his reading. He really picked up a lot. We did math, we did language arts, and I had other plans. But those plans fell through. But something sparked his interest, and that's when it all began. He wanted books on World War II, and it probably began with Pearl Harbor. And he kept reading more and more. He would ask me if I knew about this battle. Did I know about this ship? And then he started talking about the airplanes, naming the different kinds of airplanes that were used and why. And then the different kinds of ships, the different kind of guns they used, all kinds of things. And then the different kinds of battles. He was more interested in the Pacific Ocean, which interests me because I felt like I didn't know as much about that end. So I felt like we were learning a little bit together, but he was definitely informative. We would go to the library, he would get more books. He was interested in watching documentaries on the subject or any old movies. But he could almost retell anything he read. He also enjoyed building. He started wanting to build aircraft carriers, huge aircraft carriers, and then battleships. He would find a book at the library that just gave a Pacific, like a double-page picture, and he would want to make his Lego ship detailed, and he would try to improve on it. Then he decided he wanted to write papers. I don't have any of my boys have a desire to write, but he wanted to write something about Pearl Harbor or World War II. So then I started hearing things about interest-led learning, because I was feeling a little bit like I am failing this child. We're not doing history or we're not doing science like we should. But then I heard that term, and I was like, I think that's what we're doing. So I think sometimes parents might get discouraged thinking they're not accomplishing all they wanted to that year, and then they realize, wait a minute, they learned so much because they're motivated learners. And I just wanted to share that with you. So that led me thinking, so how have I been working all these years? I have one that's his 2nd year of college, I have a senior, and a 9th grader. So I started thinking back, wow, when my oldest was this age, then I would have had, so he was 9, I had a 7-year-old and I had a 5-year-old. And I started thinking, we went to the library a lot. Usually when they had a question about anything, I would write it down, and I would get books on that subject at the library. Sometimes they would forget about what they asked, and they weren't as interested at the moment. But not only did I do that, I let them look in the sections they were interested in within reason, in the children's section. And usually it was straight to like a book about tanks, a book about battles, a book about wars. It was about football. Sometimes it was about different equipment or tornadoes or hurricanes. And they were reading all these books on their own. Like we had our other schoolwork. We did do history and we did do science. But then they would take all this information, and next thing I know, they're digging a trench outside, which I was okay with. I had 3 boys. If they were burning energy, Mama was happy. So they would be building trenches and dressing up with their, military gear or cowboy gear, whatever they were that day. So I looked back and thought, I think they were interest-led. And I didn't even really realize it. And I think most parents that homeschool, if your kids are home long enough, you're going to realize they're going to find an interest, and that's what's going to spark that interest to move even further with reading, studying, maybe writing a paper. So I just really want to encourage that even if you feel like you're not getting it all done, let them have what they might be interested in. It's okay. And you'll be amazed what grows from that. I also wanted to share with you about teenagers and their interest-led learning. I noticed with my second one especially, he got into photography. 6th grade, he took a co-op class. We have done co-op in the past. We're not doing it. We haven't done it in a couple years, but it was a really good class, and he learned a lot about the basics of aperture and lighting and ISO, and he understood it all. It's like he wrapped his mind around it and can re-explain it to anybody. And he was determined to save his money up to buy a camera. He tried to get as many books as he could from the library during that time, and he finally said, "Mom, a lot of this stuff is outdated." So I went ahead, we had a computer here in the living room, dining room area, and I let him go ahead and YouTube information about cameras. He did a lot of research, and I really think that helped him a lot. He not only did it about finding the right camera he wanted, but about photography. He could do more research, and he enjoyed it so much. And he ended up getting a camera in 9th grade. He saved up enough money to get his first DSLR, and I don't know if it was that year or the next year, he ended up turning in a picture. He liked wildlife, and he ended up turning in a picture, and it wasn't like a huge magazine. I think it was one that was just coming out, but he got one of his pictures in the magazine with an article that he had written up. So that was not in my written school plans. That's what I'm trying to say. Interest led to me is something that is not in your written school plans. Yes, especially as we went into high school. I mean, there is requirements that you have to do, but outside of that, I know some kids are completely involved in sports, and ours are not. Our boys love sports, don't get me wrong. They love playing football with each other. They played baseball when they were younger, and they love baseball. I have one right now that is way into basketball, and prayerfully in a year or two he might get to play. I'm not sure yet. But so that wasn't really an option, but that gave them so much more time to find other things that they could accomplish. My oldest ended up finding out more about bikes. My husband always kept us on some type of biking trails, and that led my oldest in interest of really deep mountain biking and saving up enough to buy his first real mountain bike, I guess is what you would call it. But he was to the point where it's not just buying it, not just mountain biking, but he was taking bikes apart and redoing them and putting parts on it that he liked, and then he would have friends that would bring their bikes in that he could fix. So it's just letting them find something that they can accomplish as a mother, saying, "Wow, that's great, that's awesome," and just encouraging them to push forward and move on and not hold them back. I'll give you one more example. Last year, my second, he would have been in 11th grade. Well, it was probably the first half of his 11th grade. He tells me, "Mom, I want to build my own computer." He's the one into photography, and he likes videos, and he wanted something with a little faster speed. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking expense, first of all. I'm thinking, what if you spend all that money? How can you do that? Can you do that? I didn't know anything about it. But he was determined. He did all the research, and he saved up to the point where he went ahead. I went ahead and said, "You know what?" And I did. I really prayed about it. I did a little research myself. "Lord, please give me wisdom. I want to encourage him to do this, but help me to make the right decision to help him." And sure enough, went ahead, let him order it all. It came in, that afternoon. It came in bits and pieces. Once he had it all, that was it. He came home. He was, I think, working at that time. So he came home that evening, and everybody put aside, he was determined to put this together. And he did. And I'm still in awe about it. I know for some people you're like, well, really, that's not that hard. For me as the mama, it was hard. I'm encouraging you, even with your high schooler, let them look outside. I know we get so just a stickler on it, but you have to have this requirement and you have to have this done. Maybe you can combine it with something. Like when my son turned in that picture for that magazine, well, he had to write up something. I mean, I thought it was pretty good. He had to explain how he got the shot, that picture, and explain about the picture. Maybe you can combine some of their interests with other subjects that they're working on. So I just want to encourage you with those words, and it really is motivated learners that you want, because that's what they'll be doing the rest of their lives. Especially with boys. I know mine are like, is school over yet? They don't want the books. They want to let school be done so they can run, and they don't realize it, but they're still learning. So I just want to encourage you, even though they may not seem that motivated about schoolwork itself, that if you can just motivate them to be learners in what interests them, that I think it'll be okay. So I hope you all have a good day. If you like this video, would hit it thumbs up, and even subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this about homeschooling. I appreciate you watching this video, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you.